Thank you, Sharon. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, 3 April 2024, and this is a regular meeting of the Waterville Valley Select Board. I am Rich Rita, the chair, and with me today is Vice Chair Bob Freeze and Select Board Member Wendy Rathgeber. So we have a quorum. We've moved this meeting up to 9 o'clock due to some heavy weather coming in later today. So appreciate everybody's willingness, staff and everyone listening to help us move along with this meeting. All righty, privilege of the floor. I see one guest in the audience. Is it a privilege of the floor item or is it something on the agenda?
It's something on the agenda, the Osceola aerial rights.
Okay, all right, we'll get there.
Thanks.
Thank you. All righty, so next agenda item is approval of the minutes. That's the 1 February 2024 and the 7 March 2024. Everybody on the board get a chance to look at them and
Yeah, my only minor comment for the February 1st, we had talked about keeping a summary out for these since it can be misleading.
that's right, that's correct.
So that still has a summary in it, I noticed.
Okay,
That's my.
that could just be excised
Yep.
completely, right? So we can go ahead and approve with that amendment. Just take out the summary to the 1 February minutes. Okay, any other comments on either set of minutes? Alrighty, I move to accept the 1 February and 7 March 2024 minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, alrighty.
The March 20, oh, sorry, never mind.
They're not ready yet.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to
Yeah.
the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there will
stuff.
be another set that I, for the really brief meeting after town meeting for the appointments.
Oh, that's
So
right.
just, I just started that and I just.
All right. Okay,
Hanging out there and I hadn't finished it.
Sure.
very good. We'll look for it this evening if possible. Financial report.
No, unless you have any questions, we're on track. We had the catch up with, retro pay, back to 1 January. And then we've started, Steve is working with all the department heads on the capital items, to make sure that cash flow wise, when we're ordering vehicles and things like that, that we're, and doing the other major items that we're sequencing them correctly. So do you have any other items
Yeah,
on budget?
You'll notice on the capital expense line, a pretty large variance on this financial report compared to the financial report I provided at the last meeting.
Yeah,
And that's because I took out the expense of the fire truck, less the 2 deposits we've already made, because we're not gonna expend that this year. And then I also took out 250,000 of the expense on the ambulance, because we're not gonna spend that this year either. So that total balance that you see there incorporates all of the other capital expense items that we're planning on expending this year, less the deposit for the fire truck, because we've already made that. That's the 35,000 that you see.
850.
in that line.
Right.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that the expense total is at 18% or so. And that line there is a large component to why we are so low on our expense side, because we haven't purchased the wreck van yet. We haven't made a payment on the skid.
The
steer,
leases,
On
yeah.
all those items.
Okay,
That's
And
all.
the 125 is really it's just a transfer. It's not an actual payment of anything on the capital reserves.
sure.
So probably in the next report, you'll see that 100% expended, because we're gonna do those transfers
Yeah.
in the books. So,
So I'm sorry, this gets a bit slow. So for the capital expenses line, the budget, it was modified to 721 from the 1.625
Correct.
and that's for those.
for those items.
For those,
Okay.
and in our financial statements, the bonded items are going to be 100% expended,
Sure.
right? but we'll have 100% of the revenue, even though we haven't taken the bonds. It'll just, it's a paper thing this year. Next year, when we bring the bonds in,
Mhm.
and actually have the cash on hand to
It's a revenue.
purchase it.
Right,
It won't be shown as a revenue. It'll just go
Oh.
against, it's already gonna be charged off as a revenue this year.
I see.
And then there'll just be bonds outstanding. And financially, it won't show up as a revenue in the year that we actually take the bond. It's shown as a revenue this year.
And
It's weird. I'm sorry
Yeah.
about the
It's not when
accounting,
you
but
take the-
it's not when
reflective.
you
Take
get the
money.
cash in.
Right,
We do fund accounting, not cash accrual
yeah,
accounting.
Okay.
So when the cash comes in and actually is in our bank account
Mhm.
is irrelevant for the financial reporting side. But we will have the cash on hand to pay for the item when we take delivery of the truck.
what's the difference, like, why take it off and do it this way instead of just show it?
Because that's the way the accountants want to do it.
Okay,
Yep, I
Okay.
mean, really, it's more of, the authorization was this,
town
was
meeting
in
this
the
year, right.
town meeting this year.
Mhm.
So it's going to be part of our financial statements for 2024.
yeah,
And that really is, from our standpoint, the cleanest way to do it, because we got an authorization to spend the money for the truck and the ambulance.
mhm,
The revenue authorization is there as well. It's just becomes a timing issue of when we take delivery of the truck. If we were gonna take the truck, get the ambulance or the truck before December 31st, we would, the bond issue, instead of being 250,000, as we talked about, would be the full 1.1 million number.
okay,
So
okay.
it has the same effect.
Was curious about the rec department. The jump there, is that from summer camps?
Yeah, it's just,
That's
all
awesome.
that is us opening
Yeah.
our camp registration and then we just get,
Money.
huge-
Yeah.
Huge income, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the reason why the parks is so far down is because most of that revenue comes from the waterfront,
Yeah.
Sure,
boat rentals,
Right.
so.
right, no, that
pretty
makes sense,
simple.
no, that's cool,
And we've already reached sort of our revenue goal and surpassed them in a couple of camp areas.
So people pay the whole amount for the camp up front?
Yes. Yes, occasionally we offer a payment plan depending on the situation. And we also work with scholarships, so there are different ways, but we do collect the full amount, 98% of the time.
nice. And then this is maybe minor, but I was curious about the post office income, that stayed the same? How does that work?
It all depends on when the Fed sends us the check. When we,
Gotcha.
when we get the money from the US Postal Service.
Okay. Thank you.
Bob, anything? Okay, I think we're good on financial report. Let's move on to department head updates. Dylan, why don't we start on this side of the room this time?
So, operations as usual. Figures that, we got all that snow, dug out the hydrants that haven't held within a few days. And
Right, of
now we're
course.
gonna be back to square one again, which again, looks like it'll melt shortly after that. I have a few updates later on. That was primarily what I had.
Okay.
prepared
For the wastewater
yeah.
treatment
Yeah,
project?
yeah,
Okay,
So, other than, I don't really have any, anything out of the norm to report for our operations, everything's going smoothly, so.
excellent. Okay. Megan?
Just
Public
so you know,
Works?
I have not done any snow dances. Okay? Done zero, maybe that's why we're getting snow now, but. Trucks are ready to go. We're preparing for the storm. The crews will be pretty much here from now until Saturday. Both crews, they'll be switching out. We'll have one crew for a day and a half, and then the other crew will take over and do it like that, so they'll be here around the clock, so just
Mhm.
be patient as we're trying to clear all the snow we're perceivably supposed to be getting.
You just jinxed us.
I know,
Yeah. How will that impact Thursday's transfer station schedule?
it may close it.
Yeah,
It has
I
the
think.
potential to close depending on how much snow,
right.
so. I
Well,
will put that on Facebook as well.
We
How
will
best to
post
handle
it
it.
on social media
Yeah.
and if staff isn't here, Sharon, you have the capability of posting from the house if you need to.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
so they-
so
we
we'll,
want
we'll
to,
post it on the, if
Okay.
you want to preempt.
I was gonna say, do we want to?
We can make a decision and close it right now, because I think realistically, nobody's gonna be able to get around during the
Let's
day.
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
okay.
just keep,
So we'll
So-
post it right away.
all right, so it'll be closed tomorrow.
Yep.
And the next day open will be Sunday,
Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah. That'll give them time to clean everything up.
Right.
Yep.
Okay,
Can also give Jim sleep.
Yeah, right.
So.
Yeah.
Other than that, we were doing spring-like things. We were checking culverts and things like that, just preparing for spring. We have found a few issues with a few, so I am meeting today with Piper to discuss those options there with a few culverts that we found.
Yeah, there's some issues on Valley Road that we need to look at. And we'll bring that back at the next meeting. With a
oh,
plan.
okay,
We need to do some more investigation
Okay.
as to.
those are
what
pretty big,
exactly.
aren't they?
There are some big culverts there
Underneath,
and we
yeah.
have a sinkhole that's starting to form. So,
Didn't we have one like a couple years ago, or was it something else that?
it was
Long
something
Valley?
else.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we have some problems with the culverts. Between
All right.
the athletic center and the bridge, so we're looking at them and we'll come back with a plan. At the
Okay.
next meeting.
Good,
Yesterday, Top Notch was in, we cut down a few trees, we did not cut down the big pines. If people see marks on other trees, it's just for assessing purposes, it doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna be cut down. It's just so we can have them assessed by tree experts, so that way we know what condition they're in, if they're safety hazards, things like that. But other than that, not much going on DPW wise, now gearing back up for winter, so.
everything back, sand, salt.
Mhm.
Plow,
Ready to go? Ready to go?
you knew as soon as you took all that stuff off.
It
that
was gonna
it was gonna happen.
Actually, one more update, the
Yeah.
trash truck was down last week, we got it back, Monday afternoon / yesterday. We're still having issues with it, it keeps blowing its coolant line. So Jason is looking at it currently, but it may have to go back down.
Something tells me the sooner we move on from this truck, the better off we may be.
Coming up with options for you.
Okay, it does seem to be a regular pattern. Unfortunate pattern.
Mhm.
I think it's a good idea, options. Okay, anything else?
The dumpster latches across town will go back on this month.
Yeah.
We were gonna do it this week, but with the snow coming, we don't wanna put locks back on it and then freeze, so.
Mm.
We'll put the latches and everything back on.
We be putting them in the transfer station, or just gonna depend on the lock gate to keep
We
the bears out.
should lock
latch
them up here.
as well?
Latch them here as well.
The bears are out.
Bears are
No.
out.
Heard they were out.
Someone told me they saw one.
They may go back.
Yeah.
Go take a nap.
Yeah. I think they've left with the Easter Bunny. I think they were last seen on a bus heading south.
That is it.
Okay. Any questions for Public Works? Anybody? No? Administration services.
Yes.
Administrative services, excuse me. Hi, Steve.
Thank you. We're feverishly working with the new vendor who's gonna provide the town with a new financial and HR software package. Go live date is still scheduled for May 20th on that. So a lot of time on the phone and on conference calls with them, doing some data collection, making sure our general ledger is how we want it to be reflected in the new system. It gives us the opportunity to, do a few things from an accounting standpoint that we're currently doing manually in spreadsheets, particularly in regards to the capital projects that I'm real excited about. Not to overly bore you, but with the wastewater treatment plant project, the engineering and the construction, as you all know, will happen in phases. So we're investigating what this tool can do to track the expenses by phases for us, rather than the project in one lump sum. So as we're in the basis of design, engineering basis of design phase now, we have a contract for that phase. And so it'll be good that this system will allow us to watch the spend down of each phase as we're going through them. And add a new phase when we enter them. So I'm excited about that capability. And went to Conway yesterday to look at BSNA Live and their operations, which was very helpful. One pattern that I'm seeing throughout all of the communities that I've been visiting is that all of the finance directors wish that they spent a little more time and put a little more energy into the implementation of the system before it went live, because there were some things and some functionalities of it that they said at the time of implementation, oh, we'll build that out in a couple of months. But a couple of months comes and goes and they weren't able to, successfully implement the certain phases of it. So I want to spend the time and energy now to build this out to the best possible degree that we can, and not have to worry about future build outs down the road. Do you have any questions about the system? The HR component of it too is pretty attractive for us. We're going to be able to track all of our licenses that we have with our employees in DPW and fire and police, and we'll be able to check the expirations of those licenses and make sure that we're staying in front of those before they do expire. We'll also, the employee self-service part of it will have the capabilities for our employees to go into the system, make changes to their direct deposit, make changes to their W-4, request time off through the system directly, all things that we're doing more manually right now. So we're excited about that.
Sounds like we're catching up to the
Should
rest
be-
of the world.
Right, to the rest of the world, but should be a big savings,
Right.
labor wise, so that we can do the things that we haven't been doing, analysis of financial information and that sort of thing. Hoping it'll create some more staff time to do that. Should help us.
Great. And this is all funded from a
Yeah.
grant that
All
Steve,
The CISA grant, yeah,
that Steve was able to
Yeah.
acquire for us.
absolutely.
That's great, although there's always a part of me that says when I hear someone say they're from IT and they're here to upgrade.
Yeah.
See a dollar sign in front of it.
Yeah.
Well, I
There's
see,
that,
yeah,
and- Yeah.
and non-functionality for a while,
Yeah.
not quite good to go, but appreciate all the extra effort you're making to limit what inevitable bugs that will happen as this is implemented in another month, 6
And we're
weeks.
also working, we talked at our last department head meeting, we're also moving the network information to the
Right, the
cloud.
cloud, right.
And so that's another big piece of this is we'll be able to access this financial reporting system from anywhere once we're on the cloud, so.
Would the eclipse impact that?
No, thankfully not. And if it
I hope
does,
not.
it'll only be for a couple of minutes, so we can shut down for 2 or
20
3
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
Just a couple of other items in your packet. You have a
Mhm.
document from Health Trust.
Yes, Mhm.
If you don't mind, I'll just review that real quick.
yep, please do. It looks like we've worked like good news, yeah.
Yep, so back in October, our insurance carrier provides us with an estimate on the increase to our health insurance premiums and workers' comp and property and liability. And then it actualizes in March, and that's what you have in front of you right now. So their estimate in October was a 13.9, say 14% increase to our health insurance premiums, and it actualized down to 9.5, which is about a $25,000 savings.
Good.
Yeah. And that, that's due to, I think, in part of us being associated with the SAU and,
Mhm.
probably probably just less claims.
We're
last year
rated,
than
we're
anticipated.
rated
Right.
as a group.
So we're at the low end of the increase among towns this
Yes.
year, as I understand it.
Yes.
Right, some towns got really hit
Mhm.
hard. 25%, I think, is what I read.
Yeah.
And we're down around.
9.5.
9.5.
And then the last item that.
Yeah,
I
I'm
had-
sorry, you had a
No,
question? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Steve.
I just wanted to give the board and the town an update that we'll be mailing our Q1 water and sewer bills, water, sewer and trash bills next Friday, April 12th is the goal to get those out in the mail. And on those, within those bills, they'll see the increases that we put into place. I think it was marked 20 on the sewer, 20% increase to the sewer
Right,
and 11 or 13.
Yeah, 11.
11 to the water and some modifications within trash too.
the trash, right, not the actual monthly rate, but the
The fees.
the fees for
Yeah.
drop-offs,
Yeah.
recyclables and so forth.
That's
Okay.
all I have.
Any questions from the board for Steve?
Mm.
Good morning, Brooke.
Morning. We had a very lovely egg hunt on Saturday. It was very windy that day. We were sort of watching the weather all week and made the decision on Friday to relocate from Packard Field over to the rec department where we could have the younger kids in the gym and the older kids outside. We're sort of wind protected and it worked out really well. So we had a really successful event there. We were at a PSU job fair last week trying to get some camp counselors. Right now, we're doing fairly well with our hiring. We're pretty much covered everywhere except for 3 camp counselors. So we're really happy with that. We have our supervisor positions covered, waterfront, and most of our camp staff, but we are still looking for 3 camp counselors. We go to a Plymouth Regional High School job fair next week. So doing all we can to get some more applicants. As we already talked about, the camp registration is going very well. We did open and got a great response, but we still have room in some camps. We are filling up in sort of usually our highest, most attended groups are the 7 to 9 and 10-year-olds, and those groups are filling up pretty quickly, but we still do have room for people to sign up. We have our wilderness first aid class, which is on May 18th and 19th. And we're posting for that, trying to get people to sign up for that. That's a class we've done for the last 4 years in May, and the AIA does it in November, and they both seem to do fairly well, offering 2 times per year. So we're looking for people to sign up for that. We also put out the Derby flyer, so Dave and I will be
Saw that.
working towards that. Typically, we get a lot of support from the community for that event, which has been awesome. So we've been able to do some really fun things. We're doing the wildlife encounters again this year, a face
Great.
painter. So anyway, we're just hoping for another successful event there. And then also we've established that we're going to do the cleanup day on May 10th. This is a day that we can't know for sure because of snow and whatever, but I know that there's kind of a fine line between waiting for it to be dry enough, but also as soon as the snow melts and you see all the trash, people they're really, urgently want to get out there and pick it up. So right now we're planning for May 10th, but that could change. And that's
what day of the week is that?
it's a Friday and it's at 10 a.m. And we are hoping to coordinate I don't know if you remember, but the last couple of years we've done a single family home residential brush pile pickup as well.
Right,
So Megan and I have been talking about that to coordinate that for the day and to be really specific that it's not for condos, it's for single family home. And that there's gonna be a time where they have to have it out by so that we of course can make sure it gets picked up by DPW. So not all of those details, but the date will be sent out, I believe, in the trash sewer bill, so that people can at least be aware that that's coming and they can look for more information. We have had an intern start from PSU. His name is Mike. He's been great. His focus is he's helping us with a bunch of stuff, but his main focus is to sort of get us situated with the waterfront, because if everything goes well, we're hoping that he'll take on the supervisor position for the waterfront this summer. He's 22, he's a great guy. Hopefully you get to meet him at some point soon. He's working primarily with Tyler. I met with the guy from Holiday Lights to show him the different spots that we would like to, light up for this
Next
coming
season.
winter. That includes the ice arena, taking down the ice arena, also some spots at Packard Field, the rec department, and we are looking at possibly a building here, the DPW building, so he's gonna come back with a quote. I also met with Ian over at the Adventure Center, from the resort to discuss sort of like how we can work together, because they're also gonna sort of increase what the lighting that they're doing. So we have a lot of overlap, and so we talked about, you know, with their Nordic trails and maybe not wanting to, my initial idea was to have like a path to the playground from the beach. But he
Mhm.
said, we talked about how that might not be a good idea because he has to, you know, groom that and take care of it. So anyway, we're in discussion and we are communicating about the best options. And when we come back with a plan, I'll of course, talk to you
Okay.
about the town's plan, and then the bigger plan for the WVRA will come to you.
Is Aubrey still headed up by WVRA,
Yes.
pretty much?
It is, I mean. that's-
Coordinator, I should
That's
say.
where, yeah, it's kind of coordinated through the WVRA, and then I think the big plan will be the WVRA's responsibility to come to the board to say, here's what we
Right.
are doing, yes, so coordinating.
And the resort will be incorporated into the WVRA,
The wider plan.
the wider plan,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. We are awaiting a dock quote. Right now, I have asked, I don't remember the name of his company. Do you remember it? Mark, Chris, anyway,
Right angle.
yeah,
Right
right,
angle.
go out and look at our truck stop
Yeah, okay.
out at Town Square
Mhm.
to give us a quote on, a couple of different quotes on, you know, what would need to happen there to get that fixed. I mean, there's some problem, I think, with the foundation of it, so we're gonna, I'll make sure to bring that to your attention when we get that. Van options, right now, no surprise, it's hard to find a 15-passenger van. When I was looking at the quotes and the availability with 2023, it was no problem, and now it's difficult. So I've been talking to Megan about possibly coordinating with her with a grant program. So I don't really have much more information than that. Megan has the specs, and we are gonna try to get something in place as soon as possible, but we are living with the possibility that we might not have it by the time summer comes, so we're going to adjust accordingly. We're likely to be closed tomorrow. There are no after-school activities today because the SAU announced that, so we won't be doing our after-school program, and we're, you know, expecting to probably be closed tomorrow. And that is the end of my long list.
Congratulations on your winning the pickleball.
Oh, thank you. You know what's fun about that was the old assistant director Nelson. I don't know if you knew him. He was a great guy. I worked with him for a couple of years. He came from Vermont for that day to play with me. And so
Oh,
he's the one who helped me start that tournament, you know, in 2015 or 16. So that was
Nice.
pretty fun.
So what happens to the Summer Blooms program, whatever the heck that's called, with Sean going away? We got barrels all over town.
Well, I did hear, I think I heard Leah maybe talking about that. No?
We haven't talked about it as a board yet.
Okay, I don't know, but the barrels are all there, so
Yes, they're all there.
could take some coordination for the planting of it, but I don't know.
I think it's just a lot of labor bringing them around and
Yeah,
keeping them watered if it's a dry
Right.
summer.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that either something ought to happen or the barrels need to go away because
Yeah.
they're
Right.
just gonna look funny being empty.
Yeah,
yeah.
They'll become trash receptacles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Hmm?
Without the barrel.
They're not cheap
Yeah,
and they're very nice to have, actually.
yeah,
Your own property, plant flowers and
Yeah,
whatnot,
that's true.
but.
Or around the community.
Yeah, but we should find out what the plan is for the barrels that are out and about town.
I will reach out to
anyone's-
Sean.
Anyone is picking up the program or not.
Last year
Cleaning
they
it up.
simplified it a little bit. Instead of planting and then delivering, they just went to each barrel and planted on site, which
Yeah.
obviously makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
But I don't know if that's something that.
They had a lot of volunteers too. think, yeah.
Well,
that
less
many,
and less.
Yeah, less and less, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know that I don't know how the ties were with the Ray Center, because I know initially it started as a big fundraising push.
Right.
I don't know how that ended up in more recent years, just maybe less enthusiasm.
Mhm.
I mean, is there a chance to get together like a garden club committee, or someone, I mean, we have all these committees, it seems like maybe there could be. Some interested parties.
I had heard, I think, from Leah that Kelly Cannon was interested in such a thing, but I don't know
Hmm.
where that particular
Well,
initiative went, but not the flowers around town, but a more expanded
we'll talk about it
gardening.
at the next Ray.
Okay,
board
yeah,
meeting,
yeah.
Which will probably be the 11th
Okay,
now
see if there's that, yeah. 'Cause
instead
I-
of tomorrow.
I think the flowers look very nice. I mean, when they were deployed,
Yep,
I mean, it really made the town look special, especially around the benches and whatnot, when you walked around town
Hmm.
or bicycled around town, so.
Mhm.
If there's a way to keep it. I think we ought to look at that option too, if someone's willing to pick it up. And I think in the past, did we helped support it, like, was it $5,000 or something?
no,
Not
I
even,
think,
I mean, I-
Maybe
I-
250.
Two-
You may have paid.
well, maybe 750, so a
Yeah.
Oh,
thousand
that-
total.
1,000
Wasn't-
from the town,
It wasn't
Okay.
a lot. Yeah,
okay,
Cause I think you just purchased the actual initial
right.
arrow.
I
Maybe
think
that's
we
what I'm
had a
thinking of.
bigger amount.
at the
being
beginning we
the
did.
first time.
right, and then it was just filling,
Yeah.
getting the flowers.
Yeah.
I
Now,
think
had
that's
they
it.
also done the plantings around the welcome sign though? Was that part of it?
They
Had
that
worked
had,
on that, yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
are those perennials, so it's fine, or were they annuals?
I think he put annuals in. We'll have to do something.
Yeah,
We'll have to figure that out.
okay.
another spring cleanup item.
And finally, Tyler, he was certified to be a Red Cross, like, first aid instructor last year, so he will be doing that again for our staff, but he also needs to get recertified himself. Sandra just got through a leadership class, she just finished. So the staff is doing a lot in terms of engagement. We just recently went to the White Mountain, or Tyler recently went to the White Mountain Trails meeting last Friday. I don't know if we were there. He serves on the WVA AIA board, and that was great, and he has another symposium coming up for the outdoor rec economy through the state. So we're trying to keep involved with that and with connections there, so very busy, getting ready for summer, staying informed. Doing after school.
Great. Any other rec department questions from the board?
When you get the quotes for the dog, can you send those over to me, because they're also FEMA related?
Of course.
Ah.
Thank you.
All right,
I forgot to mention that.
we like FEMA
That's a
related.
good.
Chief, what's happening in public safety?
Not too much, outlined in my report. We did scope the drains on the fire bay floor. We had 3 different companies, give us some quotes and look at it. 2 companies came in and scoped it. One was based off of the information we gave them from there. The pipes are definitely broken. But the good news is the voids underneath them are not significant at this point. That we can, it's kind of a repair in place plan. And we did, Rowell's came in as the.
Within budget.
Within budget for those repairs, so. We'd like to, potentially move forward and get that done probably end of May, early June, just to. The trucks will have to be outside, that sort of thing, so I'd like to make sure it's at least warm enough weather to do that. But it should be a couple days of work, no real big, interruptions, but. They're gonna clean the whole pipe all the way out, but then just repair 60 feet of the pipe that's in the
Mhm.
bay itself, so. I think it'll be adequate to get us through for. Hopefully, the remainder of our time here.
Whose time? Moving on.
I did submit, a couple appointments, I'd like to, get Jim to be a deputy health officer. Officially a deputy building inspector and code enforcement official. For us, he's pretty integral and he's been pretty much working independently for the things that I can't get to. He's pretty much taking over and, doing those sorts of things, but in order for him to be official, he needs an appointment from all of you, so, I would recommend that. We appoint
Do that right now? Do we need to formally do that?
Yes.
Yeah, I
if
think
you
we had
take
the
a-
form.
It's
Vote.
right here.
All right.
Other than that, we're, right now focused on maintenance. We get pump service done on engine one and the tower. Engine one had some packing that had to be replaced, in the pump. And that will be just a regular maintenance thing. We think we can get away with it every other year. And it won't be as significant. It hadn't been touched in about 10. But they said the truck was actually in pretty good shape.
So it should be motions too.
So I think we can get away with every other year for pump service. Cummings will be here for engine service, our annual engine service, next week. Or on the 15th, and ladder testing. Company comes in, certifies the tower and all our ground ladders. And they'll be here on the 8th, so.
And car speed board count for the month of March was 30,998 vehicles
Hmm.
at Triple I Road intersection.
Yep.
Just pulled that,
That's
yes,
1,000 a day.
1,000 a day.
Yeah. The last 2 weeks, it's been pretty slow as far as building wise, but it's picking up this week. I think they approved 4 permits yesterday for renovation, so I think as the nicer weather comes in, we're gonna see that's, we're gonna crank back up again. Also working with the resort and getting some of their stuff scheduled for life safety. And we're gonna be doing a temporary permit for the conference center. They have a fire alarm system that needs to be installed there because of their renovations. So they're gonna be operating on a temporary assembly permit until June 1st. They have till June 1st to get it done. It's been 3 years.
Yeah.
So they know that.
We've discussed this before. You brought it to our
We
attention.
have, and
Before, yeah.
we're gonna go there today to do life safety just for the temporary assembly permit. But their annual one will be done once that fire alarm's in place. If it's not, that is the line in the sand where they will not have an assembly permit for any of their functions if they do not get it complete by June 1st.
Is it particularly onerous or had something happen with the, I mean,
There was a renovation project started about 3 years ago.
yeah,
And part of that renovation project was, there wasn't a permit pulled. But part of that renovation prompted them to upgrade their fire alarm. They
There's
had
there's been an
planned on
issue
it.
that's been going on
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah,
okay.
A lot.
and so, we've been trying to work with them as far as getting it done, but they found out it was pretty significant, pretty expensive,
Yeah.
to upgrade that system, so. But if a major renovation requires you to then bring it up to code,
Right,
and it wasn't
gotcha,
to code,
okay.
so.
So it's more like a passage of time thing that
Yeah.
Mhm.
everything,
Mhm.
gotcha.
Yep. And then if there's any other questions that I can answer about that are on the report that you might have, I don't think I have anything else.
Any questions for anybody?
I had a homeowner from Village that tried to get me involved in the approval process for their unit
Yeah, well,
conflict that's going on.
and I wanted to go into non-public and talk to you
Okay.
about that.
I basically
Okay.
deferred.
Okay, yeah. I noticed that I guess it's fair to call it the ambulance crisis here in central and northern New Hampshire, really now being noted in the press.
Yeah, and it really has been, and it has been for about a year and a half now.
Right.
But it's really starting to, the private ambulance services.
Right.
Yeah.
Are really taking the hit.
More expensive to operate that they're getting reimbursed for.
Yeah, there's a lot of bills, the balance billing kind of hurt, especially them.
Yeah.
You know, and we see it, you know, we write off, you know, maybe close to 30% of potential our bills because we're seeing those folks, they're getting paid by the insurance companies who are in turn supposed to reimburse us,
Right.
but that's not happening. And so there was some legislation trying to get it back where the insurance companies directly pay the ambulance services, because these people, you know, once whatever their emergency is over, they're home, and 30 days later, they get a check in the mail. Well, why did I get a check in the mail? And so it goes away, and we're not getting,
Mhm.
that's supposed to be applied to. For
The bill.
And the legislation was to try to get us the money rather than going to the person, is that
Correct.
correct?
Right.
Has it passed, has it been voted on?
No, I don't think so. It hasn't. There's been a
We'll
lot-
check the status of that, and if the board
Mhm.
okays it, we could send a letter of support to the, whatever committee it's
Sure.
in front of. And we can have Rich sign it on behalf of the board if that's okay. We can
Mhm.
just say that we support the legislation, and
Yeah,
we can cite the fact that,
Have the
We're
insurance
writing
company
off so
pay
much.
the
yeah, just
insurance-
have the insurance company pay
the
the
service.
service rather than the individual.
We are sending those to collections.
Mhm.
You know, each one of those goes to, you know, because we can tell when we get the sheets that they've been paid.
Right.
The insurance company knows
Mhm.
this person got a check. And so all that goes to collections. So we're not writing them off until it really ages out, and then it's, you know, black mark on their credit report. If that's the case.
All right, so let me go ahead and make a motion to officially appoint Jim Chapin, the Deputy Building Inspector and the Deputy Code Enforcement Officer, Town of Waterville Valley, to take effect today, 3 April 2024. Do I have a second?
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and
And
sign.
then deputy
Health officer.
deputy health.
It wasn't in the,
No, that other.
The
piece.
other-
Oh, the other one,
piece of
sorry.
paper is
Right.
health officer.
and I will make the same motion with regard to Jim as Deputy Health Officer for the Town of Waterville Valley, effective today, 3 April 2024. Have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
One.
Aye. So 3, we picked up 3 appointments.
Reappointments.
Tell the person I can put in the Tyvek suit to do
Yeah. We don't have those problems.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Let's move on to calendar review. The next planning board meeting is 11 April here at 8 AM. I see the chair of the planning board here, John Racine. Hi, John. There's a reason, a particular reason you come here today or just to listen? Okay. Very good. It looks like we're still looking at either 2 PM, April 17th, or another day, another time on the 18th for our joint school board.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
like we're
waiting to hear
waiting.
back.
I think
Mike's checking
I saw-
these.
I saw Mike's email
School board
that I'm waiting
members.
to hear back from
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
From the school board on that one. Our next regular select board meeting is 17 April here downstairs meeting room at 3 PM. And we are planning our annual strategic planning meeting on the 24th of April at 9 AM. Location to be determined, right? Are we locked in?
We're locked into village.
We are good at Village.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Yeah, I got lost a little bit in the back and forth in that, so it'll be Village. Very good. Okay, let's move on to new business, we'll just pass on, on the cable franchise agreement renewal until our legal representative arrives virtually.
Mhm.
All right, let's move on to the review of the aerial rights easements.
So you have the request with, and we shared last meeting, the, example, documents that,
Mhm.
Tyrell has. The request from the resort is a similar wording for, Village Road and for Snows Brook Road. The reason for this, this is earlier in the process than the resort had originally intended. When they went to apply, with the Forest Service, before they're going to be allowed to begin the environmental impact study, they have to have, if not the actual document signed, but at least a letter of intent. In this case, from the board, that we're in process of issuing the deeds for the aerial rights. And they need that prior to beginning the environmental. They thought that they were gonna be able to file the environmental impact study and then have, while that was ongoing, put these in place, but the Forest Service told Tim that he has to do it up front.
In effect, is the letter of intent basically a commitment?
Yes, that's what they want, is a commitment that we're going to be doing the deed for the aerial rights.
That we've agreed to it.
That
The
we've
board
agreed
has
to it.
agreed to it.
Correct.
What about Osceola Road? It looks to me like it goes across. the
No,
corner
it
of
just,
Osceola Road.
no, it cuts off. It cuts off, it does not actually cross Osceola Road itself. It goes across Snows Brook Road to
Over.
Osceola 1 and maybe to Tecumseh 1.
So
But it's not over Osceola Road.
what other easements do they need? They need all the easements lined up before they go to the.
Yeah, they've got to have all of the easements.
So there
lined
must
up.
be one from Black Bear.
No,
I don't think it goes.
it's
the
across
property.
their land. It's across Tyrell land, so they'll need it from Tyrell. The
Hmm.
resort would need it from Tyrell. And I
Right.
believe they already have that.
How about Osceola condominiums?
Osceola 1 and maybe Tecumseh 1.
Do they have that?
I believe James had indicated to me that they did have agreements with them, if not the deeds themselves.
Is Black Bear Road, is that owned by the Black Bear or is that owned by?
It's owned by Tyrell.
Okay.
So there will be probably an internal deed, but from one company to the other.
Right.
Because this request is coming from the Waterville Valley Ski Resort, not from Tyrell.
Right.
Right.
And they've also asked for Village Road to easement.
Village
area.
Road
And
Snows
Snows,
Brook. Road.
those are the two town
Yep.
owned properties that
Mhm.
they need the easements from.
You have.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, any comments? I understand, there's maybe a person here about the aerial easement.
I'm in Osceola too, so I was just curious if there was any change in the location of the.
No, it was still across Osceola
Between
1
Osceola one
and
buildings.
Tecumseh 1. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Got it? Okay,
That's good.
So one thing that concerns me is the perpetual nature of it.
Mhm.
You know, so if 10 years go by and nothing's happened and this company sells the resort to somebody else.
Mhm.
I'm concerned about a perpetual easement that. You know.
it may never be,
Yeah,
but
and
always hanging out there, but never be
yeah, I mean, so
used.
I'd rather see some kind of a 10-year period where it lapses if nothing's happened in 10 years and then have to come back and reapply for it. I don't know exactly how you do that legally, but
Right. Okay, we'll look at language, but would the intent be that if once they build the gondola, then the perpetual nature of it continues. I think what the
Yeah.
Forest Service might be concerned about is
No,
the
I'm okay.
easement
If
lapsing.
Once the gondola's
You know,
built.
That could be
yeah.
Once it's
language in the
built,
agreement.
okay, so once it's built, it becomes permanent, okay.
Um. And in our easement, the town granting an easement does not imply that they have, if they have a height problem with, or any other problems with ZBA.
Yeah, there's no, you're not
it's-
making
it's no,
any,
We're not,
no,
it shouldn't be inferred that this,
we'll make sure that,
Right.
yeah.
Well, that'll all
This
have
is
to be
Not inferring, approval,
by the planning board or
Yeah.
any exceptions they may
Right.
require from ZBA.
Right.
We still have to go through that process.
and I assume that the status of, they still are interested in Village Road. Yeah.
they are, but that's separate from this request. And I think, you can get an idea of what the intent would be as part of the discussion when James and Tim come in, at the next meeting,
On the status of
on the status
the
of
larger
that,
project.
the larger.
I mean, I'd feel more comfortable if we had a, sort of a phased discussion
Okay,
about, what they plan to do. You know, for instance, you know, who's gonna ride this lift? You know, I see a bunch of questions that necessitate future development. For instance, I'm a beginner skier and I'm staying in the Snowy Owl, my family. We don't have any equipment. How do we get to the mountain?
okay,
You know, I have an adaptive person in my family.
sure.
You know, what do I do?
How does that?
I got a kid
Yeah.
that's in the nursery,
Mhm.
so I gotta drop off my kid in the nursery.
Mhm.
So I can't ride up the lift to the top of Green Peak.
Hmm.
You know, so if you're a beginner skier and they say, well, they're gonna go up the first phase of the lift over to where Triple I Road goes up.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have another base lodge there.
I think
So-
that was what they had initially.
So
That's
you're
the
gonna,
concept.
You
put a
should
beginner
have that
lift in there then?
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'd kind of like to feel like,
Mhm.
we have some knowledge of what they're gonna do. Cause
Mhm.
the success of the resort impacts the town
Mhm.
significantly.
Mhm.
And I just don't feel like we should be giving, our acquiescence to, without knowing
Sure.
the answers to some of these things. You know, how do they plan to phase it and how's it all gonna work?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to micromanage them. I just wanna understand that
Yeah.
the town's not getting in over their head.
Mhm.
And somebody that decides to walk away from the resort 5 years from now, we're left with having given up Village Road.
Sure.
You know, so.
Okay.
We can make that part of the discussions. They were
absolutely.
planning to come in the next meeting, was it
Yes,
Okay.
the 17th.
17th?
Yep.
That good enough, Bob?
Yep.
Okay, discuss it with them then.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
Good. I'll share those
Yep.
concerns.
all righty.
Do we know if there is a height problem with towers in terms of zoning?
I don't know if I think they're gonna need a ZBA variance, but I am not sure about that.
What about a
45 feet in commercial.
Yeah, 45, but I
But
think
those
it's
are
50.
structures.
I think the structure is
I don't know if
50
we've
feet tall.
Address it and do we address it in?
I would have to look.
I'd have to look in the
I'm
zone.
not sure, but I know that James has done his homework on it.
Right, and
We
then
can talk about that on the 17th.
when we
as
talk to
well.
them,
after it goes over Osceola and where it crosses the river, does it also cross the Britton land?
no.
No, no.
It's south.
it goes
southwest.
directly over the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does not cross any other private land after Osceola 1. Tecumseh 1, whichever. wherever it
Yeah, line item.
exactly end up being.
Okay.
All right. Move along then. The statistical revaluation kickoff.
Yeah, just wanted to let you know that it is scheduled for the 10th. It's basically a staff meeting between DRA and the assessors and town staff. So that the assessors can lay out their timeline and plan for the project. And DRA can discuss any concerns or whatever. It should not be much because they only have to do their normal building permit
Review.
visits
Mhm.
as far as visits to properties. The rest of it will be a statistical analysis and analyzing sales data and that sort of thing. So that's not anything that folks here in town will see. That's gonna be an office type of work, so.
Will they need to set up in here again, or? are they working-
I don't think so. We will find out at the meeting on the 10th, but I wouldn't anticipate that they're gonna spend much time
Mhm.
here.
Okay.
They have remote access to the information. So they can do most of it at their offices, right?
And the impact of this is gonna be rather immediate
It will be immediate. We're
October.
going to get new values out
for our October
probably
rate setting.
August, September timeframe. They'll have probably conduct hearings because we anticipate substantial changes in property values that folks, I'm sure, are gonna have questions about. And they'll be able to talk to the assessors before we bring the values in to you for final approval. And those will be the values that we use in the October billing.
Mhm.
So there will be a billing in July or for July 1st, probably in June, or end of May, that we will send out, which will be at the current valuations and will be exactly 1/2 of last year's total bill. And then the new values will take place, calculate the new bills based on the new tax rate in October, and then bill the balance due for the
As well,
year
right?
for December payment.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Mhm.
All right, let's move on to old business.
We've got about 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Think we can get the SWEP discussion
Yeah.
in? Yeah, let's go ahead and do the state education funding update.
Yep, so the good news was yesterday, the sponsor of the amendment to House Bill 1583 pulled the amendment before it could be discussed
Mhm.
by the Finance Committee, House Finance Committee. It effectively killed for the rest of this session any return of SWEP. The Rand case, which is the other part of the return of SWEP, is before the Supreme Court. The initial order that came from the judge to put it into effect for
Mhm.
this October has been stayed until the Supreme Court can hear the case and make a decision. So
When is that likely?
probably a year timeframe. So I think we're probably okay for, we're definitely okay for this tax year. And then I think realistically 25, they would not be able to implement anything. If a Supreme Court decision came out in March or April timeframe, it would probably be too late for the legislature to take any concrete action on it. So.
So we could be looking at 27.
26. Yeah, 26 probably at the earliest, if if anything happens.
Mhm. Alrighty.
So I think we're good for right
Very
now.
good.
I would like to 1583, the House bill itself
Mhm.
does increase education trust fund expenses targeted to towns that are in need, right?
Mhm.
There's a formula in there that to determine which towns need additional assistance from the state. Because their SWEP does not cover their school expenses, or they have other controlling factors. There was a request of the coalition communities that the coalition communities support 1583 just as a clean bill without the amendment. It does not, the clean bill does not require any return of SWEP or
Mhm.
whatever. The coalition board decided not to do that because we could not get responses from all members in time to come up with a letter. But I'm just wondering if you, as the Board of Selectmen for Waterville Valley, would like to provide any thoughts to our representative before, because the House will be voting on this,
Mhm.
if not tomorrow, then early next week. So I just throw that out there.
And really, it's an
And-
increase in the amount of money
For education.
for education.
Yeah,
in
but it
general,
does
but
not come
tar-
from
tar-
SWEP.
It's, they're not gonna take that money from the SWEP that we collect, and that is returned to the town of Waterville Valley for our
Use.
school.
Yeah.
But this is an increase in the adequacy, or is it, what's
It
the?
is an increase in the adequacy to $4,400.
So it's not really a big
Not a big
increase.
increase,
Yeah.
but,
The state will have to come up with the
and the
money.
state will come up with money from other sources other
Okay.
than SWEP.
Yeah.
And even if they increase the SWEP rate, there's no requirement for the donor towns to
Right.
send anything.
That's
to
still a
Congress.
separate issue. We're
Still
gonna,
a separate
we're
issue.
gonna be required to collect whatever they say.
Whatever they say,
Say the
and
SWEP rate is,
our
right.
school budget is enough so that the net effect will be a lowering of our
Tax rate.
education.
The other portion of it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Whatever
So,
Rube Goldberg
I mean,
scheme.
it's well, it is,
Yeah.
but it is targeted aimed to the
Right.
communities that are in need. It is a funding source that is other than SWEP.
Right.
So, you know, I
Okay.
don't know how you feel. There
Right.
may be communities that just don't want any additional education money.
Why can't the, well, maybe this is simplistic, but why can't there be legislation that a town has to put enough in their budget to come up with the $4,400 per student? So it varies by town as opposed to a statewide mandated fee.
Because the
Percentage.
Constitution requires the state to provide for an adequate education
But
for every
But
student.
wouldn't that do it if the state mandated that each town had to put enough in their town budget to come up with $4,400?
Well, that's what the SWEP rate does. The
No,
SWEP,
the SWEP goes beyond that, obviously, because we come up with way more money. I'm saying that instead of being $1.28 or whatever it is in the
Yeah.
statewide,
Mhm.
that in Waterville Valley, it's 46 cents. And in some other town, it's $1.10, and some other town, it's $1.
well,
And the amount per town is varies
that,
to the,
that is the issue. It can't vary. It has to be the same tax rate for every town.
well,
And that has been the crux
so
of,
why can't there be legislation that changes that requirement?
because the interpretation of the Constitution is that every student in the state has to be treated the same way. So every town has to raise this equalized amount.
Seems to me that's
Well, that's our argument to the,
interpretation.
that is exactly our argument at the Supreme Court is by doing the SWEP at a set equalized rate across the entire state, that we are meeting what the Constitution requires. It does not require, however, that the town of Waterville Valley send money to the state to be redistributed to other. That's what our argument is. We're using that money for education, and that's
Right.
sufficient.
And we-
That's our argument.
And we choose to have a
And
local
we choose
education
to have a
tax,
local education tax to make up
the difference for what our budget is.
for what our budget is.
School budget is for any given
And-
year.
You got people waiting.
Yep,
Okay, so that is the crux, Bob, that is exactly the argument. The discussion that's going on at the state, what you just said.
alrighty. I see we have our guest here, so why don't we just go ahead and move over to the update on the cable franchise agreement renewal.
Catherine?
Good morning, Catherine. Oh,
Oh.
can't quite hear you.
Hold on, we're working on it.
Hi,
She
good
mean-
morning. Thank
Yeah.
you. I have with me my associate Brianna Matsuko. So we've got probably something easier to talk about than school funding. Usually,
I hope so.
people franchising is pretty complicated and difficult to understand, but school funding is a lot harder. So
Eh,
you have my sympathy. So I've been chatting a little bit with Steve Royer and sent a memo up for folks to review. You've
Yep.
got a franchise agreement with Charter Communications that's up for renewal. You are not tied to only having a franchise with Charter, but typically in most New Hampshire towns, there is only one cable TV provider per town. But if another company came along and said, we'd like to join you and have an additional cable franchise, you can certainly grant that. They're not like a utility where they get an exclusive territory. The current franchise covers only cable parts of their business. So although they provide a lot of internet service to folks as well, through the way that the cable regulations and laws were created, the town has only regulatory powers and can only have a franchise that covers the cable TV portion of their business. So that seems like sort of an odd arrangement, but that's how it is. Internet service, as you probably know, is pretty much unregulated. So at this point, it's not considered to be a utility. It's not considered to be something that's regulated out of the FCC in terms of rates and things like that. That will change because the FCC has gone back to a net neutrality approach, but so far they've actually proposed zero in the way of rules. So it looks like that's not having much effect.
Having a little trouble hearing you, Catherine. Could you hold on a moment?
Can you hear okay?
Yeah, now it's
Now
good.
it's better.
Now we got you.
I'll get a little closer. I don't have the greatest setup here. See if this is better.
Yep, that works.
Okay, good. And your current franchise is fine, but not as good as we can get. We have very limited bandwidth for negotiating, but we've hammered out a template with Charter. And we do the same thing with our other cable companies in New Hampshire so that we have kind of the basic terms kind of pre-negotiated and agreed on. So I went through and did a little comparison of your current franchise agreement and what would likely be in the renewal franchise agreement. There are, marginal improvements in terms of the town's protections and control, although I don't want to oversell what the new franchise would do. It still deals with just this one cable company, just having to do with cable. It doesn't cover their prices or the way they package their programming. So sometimes folks are not thrilled with it being sold in tiers. And you have to get a whole package if you want a particular type of programming. So our jurisdiction doesn't cover that, but it does cover some of the basic terms of providing service in the town, including the density of homes per mile where the company is required to provide service. Do you have a sense that there are parts of town that don't have cable TV service and would like to have it?
Yeah.
Everybody has.
Great. That's good news. Have you been one of the lucky towns that has had additional broadband build out from Consolidated Communications or other companies?
No,
Probably you would know about it if you were, so, okay. But that's good if everybody has service from Charter. Your current franchise agreement gives you the right to have a local access channel. Although in talking to Steve, it sounds like you've not availed yourself of that opportunity.
We would want to see it go away, right?
So that drop right over there, we're supposed to, underneath the table, we're supposed to be able to plug into but they did not, Charter has not, up to this point, provided us with a channel.
Dedicated channel. that
Dedicated
people
channel
can tune to
to it.
watch it. At
Um,
meetings.
So we have the capability, but they have not in the past given us a channel.
So the question is whether you want to activate that or whether you are willing to let that go. If you haven't been operating a local access channel, which is the term of art under the cable laws, to stream your meetings and other types of town activities and events, there's a pretty big cost to getting that going. They would have to install a video return line that's one strand of dedicated fiber from where your programming originates, which sounds like it would be this room, up to their head end, which is kind of their hub facility. And that is a very costly construction, and they would pass that through to the subscribers. So there would be an extra charge on people's bills. You'd need to get cable equipment, which is more expensive than streaming over the internet, and they would need to get some equipment in order to process your signals. So if you don't have that programming in place, unless you've got a burning desire to do it and are okay with the cost, I wouldn't recommend initiating it now.
But what we had in the past was not through the town, it was the WVTV, which was, you know, through the resort, right, or EVP.
that's right.
So it wasn't that we were using it for town broadcasting, it was that we were using it for resort related broadcasting. And so I would think that we'd want to hold on to that in case in the future, someone in the resort or the business community would want to pick that up again.
That's
Right?
a very good point. So the franchise agreement talks about WVTV. So does the resort have, how do they use it? Do they have programming on it?
It's not used, it was through EVP, which wasn't technically part of the resort, and the Resort Association had assisted in funding for a little bit, but there were a lot of businesses that were kind of involved through the years. So
The original franchise agreement with SkiSat,
yeah.
SkiSat and the resort were owned by the same people. And so there was a quote unquote studio in Town Square. The drop went there and they did programming from the studio in Town Square.
Right.
When we renewed the agreement, the resort had divested themselves of doing that channel. We just kept a drop here at Town Hall to be available if the town ever wanted to, you know, start that WVTV up again. So, I guess in going forward in renewing, we just like to have that flexibility so that if the resort changes in the future and wants to reinstitute it, then or the town does, we can. It doesn't necessarily have to be in this room, but just have the capability available to us. But not incur any of the cost right now.
Right, okay, that sounds like a good plan. And we'll flesh out a little bit with the charter rep. What you would need to do to activate that, just to let them know that could happen. They've had a couple of different local reps, and we're now working with someone who used to be with Time Warner, named Shelley Winchenbach, and she's very good. We had another fellow for a while who was not very responsive, but she's generally very good. She does cover a big territory. She covers Maine and New Hampshire, and she may even go into Vermont. But she's generally pretty easy to work with. And now that we've hammered out kind of the basic terms, we would generally have pretty good luck. So it sounds like that's one thing we definitely need to continue, which is the option for that local access channel. You also have, according to the franchise agreement, some courtesy cable TV services at your municipal and school buildings. Do you know if folks are using those at this point?
We are
No.
not.
No,
The school may be, but our rec department is co-located with the school building. So all of your services are provided by them.
Mhm.
Do they know about it?
What do you mean?
Current, the school, the current
courtesy.
administration?
Oh, yeah,
No.
they knew at the time we renewed the franchise agreement.
No, but I'm saying that the administration of the school has changed since then. Does the current administration know?
I don't know what their setup is.
I don't
Oh,
know.
It's all through the IT department at the SAU 48.
Yes, okay. So it is a fairly basic level of service. It's typically the lowest digital tier or something like that. It's not going to give them all the whistles and bells. And again, it's just the cable TV portion of the service. It doesn't include free internet.
Right.
And in this day and age, folks are probably watching less cable TV and using more internet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they
They show the
utilize it.
news a lot in the middle school, but I'm sure they're just going on.
Probably
the internet.
streaming, yeah.
But we should probably ask.
We should ask SAU 48. if
Okay.
they're using it.
but with regard to the town facilities, we're not
We-
using.
Okay,
Well, they-
all right. Do you want to keep the language in there or do you want to drop it?
I think there are some potential advantages. Dave's stepped out, but. Oh, there he is. Do we want, do you have a need for cable television access here in the building? Or are we better to do it over your communication needs, better over the internet?
I mean, we'll continue over the internet. I mean, if it was available and we could, dedicate the resources to putting information down, I'm sure we'd
No,
use it,
I'm
but-
talking about your access just
Oh,
to a
just
cable
our-
TV service
I think the streaming
is okay.
is fine.
Fine.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. The other sort of component of that is, there's been a rule change at the FCC about whether courtesy services that are received by towns and schools count towards the cap on franchise fees. So right now you've got a franchise fee that's 3% of the gross revenue from the operation of the cable system in the town. The statutory maximum can be 5% of the gross revenue. But the FCC rule says if you're getting any courtesy cable services, then the cost to the company to provide those services is factored in as part of a franchise fee essentially and counts towards that 5% cap. You're well below at 3% currently. And you've got the ability to go down in your current franchise agreement. I'd recommend putting in the flexibility to also go up if the town decided to do that at some point, although you never need to take that opportunity. But if there are any courtesy cable accounts, those would go away once you got to the 5% maximum. So if you're at 3%, 4%, probably even 4.5, you're probably fine. But that's just something to be aware of, that change in the cable regulations.
So why wouldn't we want to get 4% instead of 3%?
Yeah.
So it's another way to get general funds for the town. They don't have to go for any particular use. They go into the general fund. The only reason not to do it is it doesn't come out of charter's profits. It comes out of the subscribers' pockets.
Okay,
So
all right.
the bills for the cable companies helpfully break out and label all of the costs that are required by the town, including the franchise fee. So there are some towns that have always had a 5% franchise fee because it's a nice source of revenue. There are other towns that have never had a franchise fee, and it really is kind of a town by town choice.
Let's leave it at 3.
Yeah.
I like having in the flexibility to go up. If you did have some particular thing that you thought this would be helpful to generate a little more revenue, you can exercise it, but there's no requirement. So, all right, that sounds good. There are a few other things that would be a little stronger in the new franchise agreement, a little better insurance coverage. I would push to get a performance bond, which guarantees performance of the franchise agreement, not just if they rip up things and don't repair them. So I think we can make it just a little bit stronger in that way. I recommend that you do a 10-year renewal of the franchise. You can always welcome a competitive cable company if somebody else wants to come into town. So it's not like you're blocking any competition. But we're at sort of an inflection point where eventually cable companies are going to want to shed their obligations under the cable law, stop providing cable services in the format that they're in, and just do internet services. It's less regulation for them. That's where a lot of the population is migrating in terms of getting its video content. So having a franchise agreement that's 10 years would require that Charter continue to provide services during that 10-year period. So it can't walk away from its obligations. I think the previous franchise agreement was, or the current one, it was a little longer, like 15 years or something.
When does the current one
Expire.
run out, and why aren't we like 5 years before it runs out right now?
No,
is-
you're within a 3-year window because they sent you their renewal letter. So let's see. It's effective in June. Um, 15 years from the date it was signed by Charter. I don't have, well, it was SkiSat back then. I don't have a signed agreement, but I'm assuming this agreement I'm signed by. So
Okay,
that's
so
2026.
Couple years out.
2026, okay.
As I mentioned in my memo, there is one useful deadline, which is to, at this meeting or another one prior to June, have the board to announce the opening of the process of ascertaining the cable related needs.
We're losing you again.
Pardon me?
We're losing you again, your audio.
Sorry, is this any better?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just try to lean in a little bit. So doing that process on the record and just saying we're opening up our process of ascertaining the future cable related needs and interests of the town. Residents, department heads are welcome to let us know what their thoughts are. If that gets in the record, that protects your rights under the Federal Cable Act. I really do not anticipate a problem with renewing the franchise with Charter because we do these on a routine basis. But I never want to, give up any rights that you would have. So having that sort of an announcement either in today's meeting or at another one prior to
June 4th.
that date, June 4,
Mhm.
would just help to protect those rights.
What
Yeah.
if we
Announce it at the
I would
meeting,
do
yeah.
it now.
Yeah,
I do want to highlight that it would be a good idea to remove the word aerial. On your,
Yep.
it's the fourth or fifth thing down, fourth
Yep.
thing down. I, just given that 99% of our system is underground,
Hmm.
I think removing the word aerial is critical.
Okay. That will be a bit of a fight. I understand your situation because you're unusual for New Hampshire towns. Most towns are the other way. But we will definitely work on that. And that's in your current franchise agreement, so
Yeah.
that's what we will push for. All right. A thing to think about. We talked at the beginning about preserving the right to have that local access channel, especially in case the resort decided to, go back to something that would utilize it. Because it's a somewhat dinosaur technology at this point, you may want to consider if we're really having a hard time getting Charter to agree to the elimination of the aerial homes per mile and keeping it 20 for both underground and aerial for the standard installation. We could offer to give up that right to the local access channel. I'm not saying we start with that, but that's the there are very few carrots that we can offer the cable company. That's the one carrot that potentially might make a difference. So I think it's just something to keep in mind as a potential negotiating point.
Okay, let's think.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions or thoughts about this?
Wendy?
Good.
Good,
Good.
no, I think we're good, Catherine.
Great.
This is
So-
light years of where we
We had been.
we were when we started the last
13 years ago.
negotiation. So this is
Perfect. So one question I talked about with Steve was whether or not you felt there were any outstanding issues that were not being addressed with Charter. There were any problems that you were having. Did we need to do an audit of the company's performance under the current franchise? If we renew the franchise agreement and there's some non-performance issues now, we lose those as things that we need to get resolved. It didn't sound like you had any, but I just want to make sure.
Do we
Yeah.
ask, because I think, and in getting back to the comment about the dinosaur technology, I think the places where this is used and relied on most is in the lodging for the transient guests. So I'm wondering if perhaps checking in with the inns and lodges in town, just as a first step to know if there are issues. I think they would know more than anyone else would.
Steve,
Yep.
what do you think the difficulty of doing a 5-question survey or something like that about the technology?
It's doable.
Yeah,
Right. Some
So-
towns,
we should think about that maybe and
Yeah.
get it out and give them a couple of 3 weeks to respond and
Or
Okay,
just to
Uh,
know if they're actually
right,
using
report
it, because
back.
if the inns and lodges are using it, that's where the resort or a potential business in
Right.
the future want to capture those guests for that, with that local channel. So I think they're kind of the crux of
yeah,
who'll
so
be
I,
using it.
no more than 20 or so surveys that we'd have to do, and that question can be the first question is, are you utilizing
Mhm.
Charter communication?
now,
Cable.
as
Cable
services?
services.
right,
yeah.
it's the cable, unfortunately.
And then we can ask them about whether or not they're seeing any issues. If
Yeah.
the answer to that is yes,
Mhm.
we can say, please let us know,
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and do that survey, that's fine. if you want us to put together some questions and get them to you, we can do that. It's up to you. I think you do need to make clear that this is only the cable TV portion, which is kind of artificial, but there it is.
Why don't we take a pass at putting together the questions and we can send them to you for review?
Okay. Now, did you want us to do a more formal audit of charter? What we would do is to comb through the document and look for all of the things they're supposed to do. So that would typically be, are you providing a local access channel? And they would say, nope, because it was discontinued or folks decided they didn't want it. We would say, are you paying the franchise fees on time? And I understand from Steve that they are. Do you have certificates that show you're carrying the right amount of insurance, which they would typically produce? And are you providing courtesy cable TV services to the locations, requested by the town?
No, I think we're good, Catherine,
Okay.
on that. Yeah.
That saves a lot of money, so I'm fine with that answer. Okay, so it sounds like the next step is probably to have you send that survey to us to take a peek at, and then we'll review it and get it back to you, and maybe give folks a chunk of time to respond and then follow up.
Okay, and we'll
We'll do
get
the-
that motion.
We'll get that motion as soon as we're done
Yep.
discussing this, yeah.
All right,
All right, thank you so much.
thank you.
Very
for your
helpful.
Time, Catherine, appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so just to follow up with that one action item, we need to signal the commencement of a process to ascertain cable-related needs and interests of the town to protect the town's rights under federal law. So I need to state, the chair will state for the record that the town is beginning the process to ascertain the future cable-related needs and interests of the town. And the board invites residents and town departments to send any ideas to the town manager with regard to this issue. And I think this will be reflected in
In the minute.
is now reflected in the minutes since I've just stated it. I think that does the trick.
Yeah.
Okay. And it is dinosaur technology,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, but who knows for 10 years?
Well, who knows who's using it?
Well,
You know,
it's,
because of the
you
transient
think of the lodges, but you would think even they would be moving towards
You,
You'd think
internet and
so,
streaming, but
who knows?
who knows? And so that's a very good point you made, Wendy, about, I wasn't thinking of them. And since so many people seem to be cutting, quote unquote, cutting the cord.
it's,
All right, so we're going to, again, no pun intended, and speaking of, let's move back to old business puns. We're still trying to repel borders from the northern border.
no, we're nothing from them, nothing from them yet.
So the northern borders grant opportunity update,
We're just waiting.
and it's
Yep.
BORDERS, not BOAR.
Yes. Yes, I got it.
The border, we're being boarded. All right, so, on a more useful note, Mark, you want to
Yeah,
update the board?
just- So you have in your
On
packet,
the
the work
work
list, the highlighted items are ongoing. So we have taken those steps since the last meeting. The thing I really wanted to highlight is number 18, which is the lead and copper records research.
Mhm.
That was, I think, left off of the initial
Okay. this is that-
list,
this is
so
that
this is a
walk-on?
new item
Right.
for you.
Okay,
Dylan is working, the state has gone out and gotten a consultant basically for every town in the state to work with. I think they have 3 or 4 of them, and they split up all the communities in the state. And they are working with us actively to help us meet
This
the
federal-
October
this-
deadline.
which could be quite onerous for us.
It will be for everybody.
Right.
So,
This deadline, though, just to clarify, it doesn't have any necessity to actually document service line material. It's
Right.
Just to say, how much of it are you aware of in this system? So we could, in theory, we could say that we have no idea other than what we have for records of what the service line material is, and that's fine.
Okay,
That's what
at
comes
this
after.
point, anyway,
At this-
at this point, as far as a record search is concerned,
Right, what comes after.
but
that
actual,
Is the hard part.
the requirement, right?
And-
This October deadline, I'm sorry, this October deadline
Right.
is just to give them a baseline of where to start going forward.
Understand.
So we're going through town records. We had the USDA project where we did connections, physical connections related to the water meter
Mm-hmm,
project. We're gonna go through those as-built, see if there are any notations about what the material is connecting the service lines to the buildings, that sort of thing.
And are you
Um,
gonna use the tests that you've done through the years for?
They don't
Water
accept. any of
They
that.
don't
So,
accept any.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so one thing
Oh,
that's.
why?
They don't,
They don't
because it's
care.
only 20 houses or 10 houses in that entire system
Oh.
that is being tested. Now,
Yeah.
again, it's good enough for EPA, and EPA is the ones that's enforcing this, but at the end of the day, it's. I don't have any answer other than they just don't accept it. What
Okay.
makes it even more difficult is, even if you have records, it needs to have the date. Not just a record, but it has to have the actual date, it has to have somebody's like actual inspection of it. There's
Oh,
three points
gotcha.
of proof
Hmm.
are required in order for them to accept it. If you only have two, they'll disregard it and say that doesn't count.
Hmm.
You can't
Huh.
do this, so.
That's why this is so onerous.
Right.
In most rural communities don't have, because of the staffing levels, we have never had a great record keeping. Think back to
Yeah.
Waterville 1970s when all of it was installed, for example. There wasn't anyone that was gonna keep records of every single service line and how it was installed, who installed it, or anything like that, so.
So
Okay,
this will be ongoing.
Yep.
It's planned by DES to be a 10-year process.
Yep.
So we're in the very initial stages of it. We just need to let you know that we're working on it with the state.
okay,
Yeah, and our consultant is called Arcadis, that's their name,
Okay.
just for.
okay.
And then the rest
Anything else
of
on the
the
work list?
wastewater treatment facility will be under the update.
Yep.
Next. So do you have any questions on anything that I
Else on the
highlighted
work list?
on the list? Okay.
All right, if
Very
not,
good.
let's go ahead and move on to the wastewater facility. Oh.
Hold on, let me just take one step back.
Yep. Okay.
We have
Something?
two things. Megan's out with Piper right now looking at Valley Road, so that's, we have.
Oh, yes, the
two-
guardrail.
We have
bid,
guardrail
right.
and we have the road work to be done this
Mm.
summer.
Mhm,
We are getting detailed breakdowns of the estimates from Piper
mhm.
for this work. And we can talk about that at the next meeting once we get the details.
Okay.
Just as a cursory review, Bill Dower did look at these numbers. And they're not out of line given the work that we did last summer and the budget that we had for the complete road builds, road rebuilding. So the 39,000, the 11,980 and the 141 are not outside of the work that they did, the comparable work that they did on Snows Brook. But we are gonna go through line by line on how
Right.
they arrived at those numbers.
I'm
On,
surprised it's so low, frankly, at this
yeah,
point.
they're pretty,
But
they
fine
are,
drainage.
they are
I'm sure.
pretty, and that's the thing.
Right,
How much of this will be modified depending on what they
fine,
find
right.
as they're doing. the work. But-
And with the Golden Heights, that will be shared.
And it's gonna be, some of that will be shared, yes, where the actual connections come out to the parking lots. Yeah. And then on the fence and guardrail,
Mhm.
32,750 is above our budgeted amount of 25 thousand that we appropriated at town meeting. So we're gonna, you should have we should have a discussion with Megan about what we have to do and whether or not we want to spend any of the road repair line numbers.
It's for the
on
guard,
this.
these are for the guard.
These are guardrails specifically on Valley Road.
Mhm.
So we're gonna look at what, getting the money from somewhere else, the
Yeah,
difference?
we would,
Or or reducing the amount of guardrail work we're gonna do?
Well, one or the other,
one or the other.
Yeah.
So.
and
I
we're
was
talking a
hoping
difference
She
of
would be here so we could have that.
8,000
discussion.
roughly.
Yeah, we would need 8,000. We have the road repair account available and which how much, that's like 60 or 70,000 left in that account.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think it was 72 when we closed the books.
Last
So
year,
from last year. So, or we can take it out of contingency, but we have 25,000 available to do that work.
So we think the 32 is a good number? I
The
mean,
32 is a good number. I mean, this is the company that we used last summer and for the work that we did, and they're very reputable. This is as good a number as we're gonna get on it. So the guardrails, the other part of this, the
Mhm.
guardrails are on Valley Road. So depending on what they're finding out there right now, we may
Yeah,
modify this. We may have a bigger project on Valley Road
okay.
than just the guardrails. So,
Well, for the purposes of this discussion, I'm certainly fine with taking the 8,000 and doing the full project from the road.
yeah, if we don't have to
repair fund,
rebuild the
but we'll
roads
see what
or
else
do
is, but
anything.
it just in terms of what's in front of us now, what we know the extra cost will be. I don't know, what do you guys
And-
think?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
Wendy?
yeah. I mean,
Might as well, I mean,
And this also
And then we'll see.
allows us to move guardrail so that we can
Mhm.
improve access to the sidewalk around the
Right.
bridge. So this, I think this is very useful work that if we don't have to do a rebuild or something of Valley Road, that we should do this summer.
Right.
Because it is gonna allow us to fix the sidewalk issue.
How would it allow that?
We're gonna push the guardrail back about 2 feet, which will give us, we can rebuild the sidewalk in that area
On the land portion?
on the
but
land
but On the
portion.
bridge portion that.
The
has to
bridge
stay-
portion is already wide enough. The problem is the
okay.
approach sidewalks
Gotcha.
on both ends are
Narrow.
more
they
narrow
narrow
than
as
the
you get to the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we widen those, then the tractor the skid steer can be on the sidewalk and can go all the way
Right.
across
Gotcha.
there.
Okay,
So this cost includes that move.
Yeah,
okay.
So,
all right.
but again, it's gonna be moot if we have.
We'll just have to wait
We're
and
gonna have
see,
to
but
wait.
again, as
Wait.
to what's in front of us, I'm fine with taking roughly 8,000 extra out of the road maintenance.
Okay,
And repair fund or whatever the formal.
Yeah, yeah.
Formal name, but I think the board is
okay.
good with that, and then that'll all be superseded, no doubt.
Yeah.
But let's at least go on record for that.
Okay.
All right, let's go to the wastewater facility update.
So you have a memo from Dylan?
Yep.
You can control, you can,
Do you wanna do the memo first, or you wanna do the CMO?
Whatever,
whatever.
flows for you.
Yeah, well,
Pardon, Bob.
cover the, if you want to do the CMO first, you saw the email that was attached in the packet. EPA.
Right, from EPA.
Yeah,
Yep.
from Barden
Um,
at EPA.
And the way that reads to me is that so long that we're able to provide them with a timeline of how we're going to
Right.
get this resolved within a year, I don't see them giving us any hard time really with.
For the record, we asked for an extension. So we're not gonna meet the deadline in our permit for CMOM implementations. I got that right? Okay. So we asked for an extension beyond the October 1, was it?
April one.
April 1.
Oh, April
This
1.
year.
Oh,
April
okay.
1.
I guess we do need that.
Yeah, we
extension.
needed the extension.
We need dead past 10.
Yes,
I
it
see.
was Monday.
I see. And
The
this,
deadline
yeah,
was
so of
Monday.
course we sent the memo to
We
them on
sent
the
the
20.
memo last week.
last week.
On the 22nd.
All right, thank you for reminding me of that.
Exactly, they're requesting to have the actual scope of work, if you will, and a timeline by May 31st of this year. And that would be, once they receive that, they'll review it and get back to us with their ultimate decision, but
Okay,
at that point, I can't, if they had an issue, one would think that they would have already told us, no, we're not going to grant you an extension. The fact that they're going above and beyond to allow us the amount of time that we requested to get them our plan.
can Black and Veatch
They can meet the May
meet May
31st.
31st?
Yeah, that's just getting a plan together of how
Right.
we're going to address it, yeah.
Right, and then from that, we will work with them
And we
to come up
talked
with a
through-
date, a new
Yes,
date.
we talked to Mario about meeting the 1-year extension, and they're comfortable that. And what this is the actual plan, the evaluation of our system, collection system, and coming up with a
Right.
plan for how to maintain it going forward.
Right,
So it's basically a, 70-80 page manual, if you will, about how we're going to have a maintenance process for the collection system. And so, I think that's very doable within a year
Yeah,
timeframe.
the difficult part was, there was some thought of 120, just asking for a simple 120-day extension, and Black and Veatch just, they didn't feel comfortable that they would be able to provide the level of report that they felt we need to provide within that.
to undergird that whole,
Yeah.
that whole
And-
program, right?
And the difference between 120 days and a year is it's now considered a major modification
Okay,
to our permit. It'll probably have to go through a public comment period. But again, as Dylan said, if they weren't giving us until May 31st to come up with the plan, they would have already told us no.
Yeah.
So.
and drop the AOC on
And
us.
drop the AOC.
Right.
So. We're confident that Black and Veatch's plan will be sufficient.
Yeah, and again.
Okay.
The other, just to note, the other part of that is, it's, Black and Veatch is still relatively new to town, so they didn't feel comfortable either with their knowledge of the collection systems to be able to go after it and actually do that.
In 4 months, right?
Exactly, so, aside from that, the next item is the final payment.
Just
Um,
one more thing on
yeah.
that, but the Northern Borders grant
Right,
is,
we're hoping will,
if we get that, it'll pay
for this,
for this CMOM work,
right.
so.
Let's go to the flows and loads report
Okay.
from Black and Veatch. Let's just close that all up.
So,
Yeah.
As you saw, I provided you guys this
Mhm.
summary of the report, and I just have some quick notes on it. So one thing of note that we found important is that we received the report over a month early from when it was on their schedule. So that was, a huge, at least,
Mhm.
knowing the history that we've had with this project, that was a huge thing for us, to see that not only are they meeting deadlines or exceeding their deadlines,
Mhm.
and, providing a very good, quality report on top of that. And again, some of the footnotes on that, due to the inflow and infiltration severity that we have, and we talked about it in the past, I feel that should change our approach to how we look at the collection system leading into the project, because that is going to impact in the long-term and short-term sizing of this facility. We had a brief meeting yesterday with Chuck Pike and Mario Francucci, both, one's a project manager, one's an engineering manager for Black and Veatch. And within this tech memo, they just assumed that there wouldn't be any resolution to the inflow and infiltration. Why that's significant is it, with weaker wastewater, you need more tankage in order to treat it. So again, if we're able to do that and make some resolution, we're not gonna get 100% of it removed, but even if we get 50%, it's going to drastically impact, again, short-term and long-term sizing of
The
the
size,
facility.
sure,
which
makes sense.
Impacts construction costs. So, I mean, other than that, this coming out as early as it did is great, because this is able to get them into the next step, which is liquid treatment systems. That's the actual nuts and bolts of the plan. So the type of facility we'll have, and that's gonna start to answer, you know, the concerns we have with how much room is this plant gonna take
Like
up,
location,
the load
yeah,
frame,
that kind of
things
Location,
like that.
right.
And that's, I think, I feel like for us anyways, aside from cost, that's one of the most important parts of this is, you know, how can we phase it or place it, so that way it doesn't take up our entire footprint and still give us the flexibility of 20 years, 30 years down the road, if we have to do any sort of modification to the facility, we still have the room to do it. Because, you know, keep in mind, this is gonna be probably a design flow of around 300,000 gallons a day, plus or minus 10–15%. So that way we don't have to build the full-size facility, which will, again, you know, inherently reduce cost of operations and capital costs to do it that way. So,
and I think it's gonna accelerate the work that we do on the collection system. We had always envisioned building the new facility and then starting the I&I remediation. It may behoove us to do them in parallel now,
Right.
and actually accelerate as much
The
repair to the collection system as we can. Get this 45 to 60,000 gallons per day
down.
down in half or more. And if we do that, we'll have less to treat, and it will be a more consistent strength, you know, in the loading, so the
Mhm.
process can be more consistent. So it is a, you know, that this analysis that Black and Veatch did is critical for us, and identified a lot of problems that we might have had we continued on with the way
Right.
we were going.
one additional note that I'd like to make is that we started, it's noted in the summary that I provided a few times, but we started a sampling analysis
Yeah.
Special program, because we never, you know, we don't staff the facility on the weekends. We never have historically, unless there's been an issue that, you know, made us do that. With the sampling program that we started, it shows the huge swings from midweek to weekend. And it's to the point where Black and Veatch even said to us that we've never seen a facility that has these swings like this, ever. So it just, and again, a lot of that's because of the inflow and infiltration that's occurring in town. But to have those swings of basically the weakest wastewater you can imagine to mid-strength is such a variance that it's hard to size a facility because of those swings.
And we can spend a lot of money on the process when we don't need to.
Correct.
If we get rid of the I&I,
As much as possible.
it's
Yeah.
gonna be a lot more economical going forward.
Okay,
On the money.
Good.
guy.
yeah, that's fine. Good. Any
Alright.
questions on either of those from the board?
No?
Do we want to talk about the final payment?
No.
Not
There's nothing to
the
report. on.
report? Okay. Alrighty, and we move to board concerns and directives. Anybody have a concern or
just
want to issue a
gonna-
directive?
Well, concern about the lights on the bridge now that the winter lights are.
They're
gonna
starting
be
to take
fading
them down,
away.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought I saw
So-
that.
our light posts are going to be back and being super visible and
Yep.
bright for everyone again. So I'd like to see some sort of plan
Okay.
for what to do there.
Yep.
So people stop complaining to me about it.
You're handy to complain to.
I am.
Alrighty, Bob, anything,
Nope.
concerns and directives? Okay, I'm fine too. Correspondence, let's see.
You got
we have-
four quick items
Yep.
there.
Let's see where we are. Them again?
Yeah, so we already took care of A. B, David Britton provided you with an
Yep.
email. I met with David. We've agreed, we'll
Yep.
move forward with that interim testing phase. Obviously, we're gonna have a setback here today and tomorrow. Probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks before we can access the whole property to
Yeah,
do.
it is what it is. Yeah,
But we'll do that as quickly as we can, and as he said, he wants it done as soon as possible, so. I don't
Everybody
think
does.
there's any, maybe at the strategic planning meeting, we can review his thoughts.
Hmm.
And have a.
and clean up and,
Yeah,
and some of
clean
the,
up and
and
some
some
of
of
the
the other
things he
things.
wants to-
Okay,
I
sure.
mean, his thoughts on what the site becomes are
Mhm.
just his opinions.
Yes,
Yeah.
right, yeah,
And there's no,
Once.
Right.
Someone else takes over the property.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Although they could condition it. I
yes,
suppose,
that's.
In the,
Ah,
yeah.
in the sale or the
True.
donation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
so. that takes-
C,
C,
Town of Holderness, it's
Yep.
just a required notice to us. They have a cell tower construction going on and they have to notify towns within a certain radius.
Hmm.
So that's all that is. And then NHMA sent out a thank you to communities. House Bill 1479 was defeated. That would have limited towns' abilities to lobby. So it would have basically done away with Coalition Communities 2.0. And it probably would have meant the disbandment of the lobbying
The
side of
NHMA, of
NHMA
course.
itself, so. It was a good win for towns and cities
municipal
in the
government
state.
and therefore taxpayers.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Okay,
So that's all I have.
very good.
We can
If we have
go
nothing
into
else,
non-public.
I'll accept the motion and move into non-public.
no move.
Oh, go ahead.
Before, can we talk about trees? Uh,
Yeah, we can
Because
talk about
it's a
trees.
public, that's a public
Yep,
thing.
sure.
So
We have them.
we have a lot of them, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So we did do the work. There was a particular tree on West Branch Road.
Right,
That we feel, staff feels should have been taken down yesterday.
right.
We deferred at your request, Rich. I just would like to talk about that because it is a safety issue,
Okay,
from staff's perspective.
Sorry.
And
so this is
this
a
was
very
the
large
big pine.
pine
tree.
that by the stop sign on West Branch Road.
Right,
On the right, as you're facing the bridge, there's this very large
and
pine.
we were planning to take it down. Rich, I guess you got some comments
did.
regarding it.
Yeah.
I thought, both Megan and I thought when we left the last meeting that the two pine trees, the big pine trees by the library
Mhm.
were gonna be left.
Right,
At this point in time. We do have a letter from Top Notch with their concerns about those trees. I was gonna review that with the library trustees and the Conservation Commission.
okay,
And then discuss taking that down, taking
those two trees.
those two trees down.
Are they
But I
just
thought-
nearing end of life?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, from Top Notch's perspective. And then the tree down by the bridge is in worse condition than the two up by the library. And it's in the right of way in the drainage area. I thought that we had discussed it and reached a consensus. We could be wrong in that
Mhm.
feeling, but what were the comments you got, Rich? And
No, that these were older, rather large pines and therefore of some significance to the town. We don't have many of this size in the actual
Mhm.
town proper, not
Yeah.
owned by the Forest Service. And that beyond cutting them down, was there anything else we could do, for example, trimming any of the dead limbs, if that was an issue, as opposed to the health of the tree, people worried about the limbs coming down. So I mean, it was both aesthetic and in a sense, environmental, I think, were the comments that I had received from a number of people. When they saw the red X's, I was tracked down.
Yeah. Has the town consulted with an arborist in the past as opposed to someone whose job it is to cut down?
Yeah, that's like asking a surgeon to do
Yeah.
a search.
Well, fine,
Just-
we can.
That was
hire
my-
an Arborist.
that was-
I did,
Well, I just
I
think it
did
would
talk,
carry more weight.
I did talk to some White Mountain National Forest folks, trees. Pine trees, especially of that size.
Right.
You do not know what is actually going down or going on
Sure.
inside them until you cut them down. Generally, the branches do indicate that
Right,
that there's a
right,
problem
there's a
with
problem and
that one
they can't
particular
support the
tree.
branches and they're
And
doing everything to survive the main trunk.
I.
No, I
it
think we
becomes
get it.
a public safety issue and we just don't want it falling on people. And unfortunately, that means cutting it down before it becomes completely diseased.
This is the first I've heard about that tree, so I don't. The ones by the library, of course, I know because we got the red things on
Right.
it. I remember
Right.
somebody at the town meeting asked you about those trees and you said, we're not doing that right now.
We're not doing the two up by the library.
Right.
Yes. I thought we had talked about the tree down by the,
I
Bridge.
don't recall any
Okay.
discussion about it.
fine,
Yeah, I thought we had given that one a stay of execution, but so we're all remembering different
okay,
things, but give me a moment here. I guess the question I have is, I mean, I'm thinking along Wendy's lines with regard to the cost of an arborist to give us a judgment on those 3 trees.
I'll
I mean, it's,
start investigating that.
unless the board feels it wants to vote on it now and vote on.
I mean, I'm just no tree expert, so I'm not sure what my vote would carry, you know,
Yeah, I don't either, and
Let's have somebody look at it.
yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is one of those, I think, flashpoints that's perhaps maybe not unique to our town, but certainly comes to our attention on a regular basis, given the residents who live here. Sorry, I'm just looking up something. Doesn't matter since, okay, so if we could get an assessment
Mhm.
of the trees, and certainly it would buttress any argument to
Right.
take down these trees, one of which is perhaps 150 years old.
Yes, I understand.
There's a lot of big ones on that, I think on that path going down to well 3. I think there's a bunch of big ones in there.
There is. Well, every big pine, white pine.
Yeah.
Right.
That one, I didn't want to.
Please,
But that tree that you're talking about definitely has gotten in a much worse condition over the last few years.
has it? Yeah.
Especially with the storms that
Okay.
have had the West Branch come up. I don't know if that's exposed the root system underneath and that's where it's starting to
Yeah.
really fail, but that's just a total assumption. I'm not saying. that's
Okay.
the case. I've noticed it over the last couple of years getting worse.
We would not come to you
No, I
with a
understand that, Mark.
recommendation to cut them
Absolutely.
down unless we thought that there was an issue.
I understand
We-
completely.
That's exactly what we are doing,
Okay,
is assessing these. And we will get an arborist
Okay.
and we will
And then we
get
can
an assessment.
get an assessment, and if we can get the arborist in time for our next meeting, we'll
Mhm.
go ahead and make the decision at that time. I think that's the sense of the board.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, so I will now entertain a motion to go into non-public.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So let us know.
I'm gonna make a motion to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Duly recorded.